Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another edition of PA Politics. I'm Flora Posteraro.
I'm Nell McCormack, Abom. It's wonderful to have you with us. But today we're going to talk about something that I think all of us at one point or another deals with, which is grief. When we lose a loved one, someone who meant so much to us.
Yes. Death is a part of life. Nobody wants to talk about it, but we really should talk about it. And we are calling this episode The Grief Over Grief. And you might think, what are we talking about? Well, it's something that I think we all experience, and we all have endured a death in our lives. And I'm going to let you go first and let you tell us what happened when your mom passed away.
Oh, well, first of all, I think anyone who has had a parent in this situation near death, I think it's very difficult because the only people in your life who ever give you unconditional love are your parents, right? And as we sat with our mom, there was one nurse, and I will always give her credit because she came to me and she had that moment where she said, your mother is dying and you have to decide, is she dying in the hospital or is she going to die at home or in hospice? What do you want to do? And it was sort of like we had all these different doctors telling us things. And that moment of clarity, like she's going to die, what do we want to do? It kind of brought my brothers and my sister and I together. But then the other thing was that in the moment when my mother was really in the process of dying, another nurse at Harrisburg Hospital, she said to us, you need to tell your mother it's okay to go. This just brings me right back to that moment. I said, you want me to do that? You want me to actually say those words? And she said, yes, because your mother is fighting this to stay with you. It doesn't get more powerful than that, but we did it because I didn't want to see her suffer anymore.
And my situation was a little bit different. My father passed away, and he was here for Easter, and he was the life of the party, as he normally is, and happy as a horse, and running after kids, and staining the fence in the backyard with my son, and Easter egg hunts and everything. And he left, and he kissed me and he said, I'm so proud of you. I'll see you at Memorial Day. And the following week, I just can't even, the phone rang and my brother said, Dad died today. And I said, what? And he said, yeah, Dad died today. He had a massive heart attack and he died in Mom's arms. And I just couldn't even process it. I couldn't make sense of it. I couldn't even understand. I was just in this extreme shock. And as terrible as the things that you and I have had to go through, our guest today has had to deal with something that no parent should ever have to deal with this. Julie Walker is our guest today. And her 19-year-old daughter, Peyton, died of sudden cardiac arrest. And rather than tell the story, Julie, first of all, thanks for being here, but please tell us what happened to Peyton.
Well, we unfortunately got the phone call that every parent absolutely dreads. My husband and I were just having breakfast November 2nd, 2013, beautiful fall morning, the phone rang and our world absolutely turned upside down. It was the president of King's College, where Peyton was a student, calling to tell us that Peyton had just been taken by ambulance to the hospital. And you can't even make sense to ask questions. You don't understand what's going on. So we started getting ready to go to make the trip up to Wilkes-Barre, and the phone rang again, and it was actually the hospital calling to tell us that Peyton had just been brought in full cardiac arrest. We had no idea what that even meant. And my husband did think to ask the question, is she breathing? And they said, no, please get here quickly and as safely as you possibly can. Imagine that drive.
I can't even imagine that drive.
Julie, how many times you and I have spoken, and I said to you, with all due respect, Julie, I don't want to know your pain. I don't want to know your pain. I can't imagine your pain. I don't want to know that. I just don't.
Well, and people often say that I can't imagine it, and I say, you're right, don't try, please. Child loss is absolutely devastating, and not only, your whole world turns upside down, and I mean, your brain gets completely scrambled. And that's really why I wanted to participate in this talk today, because there's so much to teach people. And Flora, I said this to you, none of us get out of this alive. We are all going to die, and I don't know why death is such a phobic, like everybody is just so afraid to talk about it, and we don't know how to help one another through this. So I just think there's so many learning opportunities that we can share today, and
I think
and really,
you're right. I think you're so right about that. My dad passed away first, and that was really difficult. We were with him at the actual moment of death, which was really difficult to watch all the monitors going down. And then my aunt, who was like a second mother, died. She died, and she had a hospice worker in the apartment with her and my mother, and watching my mother deal with it was really difficult. They had lived together for many years after my parents divorced, and just watching her say goodbye. But I always remember the hospice person gave me a sort of a poem, and it talked about, we're waving goodbye to the ship that's going, but there is on the other side a whole bunch of people welcoming them. Sorry, I find that so comforting, though, that they're transitioning somewhere else. And it's true, it's part of life, and we have to look at it as, thank God we had them in our life, but now they're going on.
Right, we're the ones that are left behind to suffer, but we don't have to suffer, and we can really help one another through this incredible heartache.
Julie, something that I noticed after my father passed, and I would like to know your perspective on this. You know, I got the phone call, and I was just in shock. I couldn't think, I couldn't breathe. I had to pack, I had to call the school. How was I going to do this? I couldn't even drive myself to Pittsburgh. I couldn't, you know, and I am so grateful to my ex-husband who drove me to Pittsburgh. My ex-husband drove me to Pittsburgh to get to my father's funeral because I couldn't function. And what happened was everybody was calling. Everybody was showing up at the door and calling and texting and calling and texting. And I just wanted to be left alone. I couldn't process it. And everybody, when's the funeral and this and that, and they're there.
They mean well.
They do mean well. But then what happens is, a week later, I came back and I went to work, and they said, hey, so sorry to hear about your dad. We need you to have 3 stories written in an hour. And I thought to myself, what? Wait, what? Wait, what?
My world just stopped.
What?
Can I take a moment?
And Julie, talk to us about what you've been dealing with, because I know that's what I dealt with, that it's like everybody's there at that moment when the death occurs, but then a week later, everybody seems to scatter like rats.
Right.
And I had a hard time processing that, so I cannot imagine what you went through. And did you experience the same thing? And how did you deal with that?
Absolutely. And it's overwhelming. I mean, especially in our situation, we had no preparation. You know, this completely turned everything upside down. Like I said, our brains are completely scrambled. We can't process. I couldn't eat. I couldn't drink. I couldn't function. The only thing I could do was breathe. And to be inundated with phone calls, and like Nell said, everyone means well.
Yes.
But that's not when we're in such shock at that moment in time. We're not helped or prepared for that onslaught of outpouring of compassion and care. That's not when we need it. We need it after the funeral. And I think I just read a fabulous article, and it talks about everyone shows up for the funeral because they think that's the event. This is the grief, and when the funeral is over, the grief is over. It's just the event. But grief really, especially in a parent who's suffered a child loss, grief is absolutely permanent alteration. Like I will never get over this, nor should I ever get over losing my child.
Well, do you want people to ask you about it? I mean, I think that's what people feel uncomfortable about. Should I say something to Julie? How are you doing? If it's several years removed, you know, we're now at 2018. How do you want that, or does that bother you?
Absolutely, talk to me about it. I still have dear friends who will text me almost weekly, how are you doing? I'm thinking of you. I'm praying for you. I need that now, and I hope I don't need it at some point in my life, but I do. I still need it. I still have moments where I'm in such shock that I cannot believe this happened. It's been 5 years, and I'm still processing that day.
I wanted to ask you something real quickly. You have a photo that we're going to be sharing if you watch on YouTube, and it has your family, and it has a hologram kind of image of Peyton. And I want you to talk about that for a sec, because
she's still your child.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter whether she's on earth or she's in heaven. You have 3 children, don't you?
I do, and that's one of the things that has changed so much about me is anxiety in social situations, because I'm finally comfortable with it, but it took me a long time to get to this point. When you walk into a social situation where you don't know people, what's a topic of conversation? Most people say, "Oh, how many kids do you have?"
Right.
And how do you answer that question? It's very, very, very difficult.
What do you say? What do you say?
So
how do you phrase it?
I finally got to the point, to me, I have 3 kids, 2 that I watch over and 1 who watches over me.
Oh, wow. And I'll bet some people don't know how to exactly what you mean. Do they have to say to you, "Excuse me"? And then
child loss paralyzes so many people. They just don't know what, and I have to say, it's not contagious. I lost my child. You're not going to lose yours because I lost mine. It's okay.
There's some of that humor you like to talk about in grief.
Julie,
I'm not contagious, I promise.
Have you, you bring that up when you say you're not contagious, but have you lost friends over this?
Well, and I still remember in the first few months after losing Peyton, especially at the grocery store, people would see me and they would immediately avert their eyes and go the opposite direction, not acknowledge me. They were absolutely petrified of having to confront me because they're so scared. They don't know what to say. Right. They are just paralyzed. And that's why I wanted to have this conversation and just tell people, here's what you need to do. Let's go back real quick to the family photo. So Peyton will always be part of my family. I will always grieve her forever. So that I will never get over it. And I know that makes people uncomfortable. Too bad. I don't care. She's my daughter. I can't ignore the fact that she was here. But getting back to what can you do? Ask me, how you doing, Julie? How are things going? Or somebody, if they just lost a spouse, touch base with them, check in, ask them what you can do for them. And I think what people don't understand, it's easy to say, well, just let me know if you need something. That doesn't work for people who are in suffering grief, because we can't even think sometimes. We don't know what we need. And for us to verbalize and say, I need you to take me to the store, or I need a meal, it's very hard to ask for help.
Yeah, so I think that's
really
very true.
I encourage people, just come up with an idea, show up. Take your friend who's grieving, take them out for coffee, take them grocery shopping. Grocery shopping for me was incredibly overwhelming for the first year.
And I'm sure you had some days that and I'm sure you still have these days where you just can't function.
Absolutely.
Do you have those days where you just don't want to get out of bed, that you're still overcome with grief?
I have never stayed in bed. I decided from the first minute of learning the news, I was not going to live my life that way. I had to get up, put 2 feet on the floor every day, and keep moving forward, because anything less than that would have been an incredible disservice to my daughter. She would have been devastated to see me suffering in that capacity. So every day, 2 feet on the floor and get going.
That was something my mother always said too. Life is for the living. You can mourn me, but move on, which is so true. We talk about trying to find humorous moments in this. I have to tell you, recently I went down and for anyone who's Catholic and lives in Philadelphia, Holy Sepulchre Cemetery, which is where both of my parents and my aunt are buried. And I went there, and I don't know how many times I've been there. I have trouble sometimes finding the grave. So I finally went into the office and I thought, I just need the map, or he needs to show me again where this is. And he's going through the directory, and he was having difficulty finding the plots. And then he goes, "Are you sure they're buried here?" Well, unless they got up
They're
and
like the Walking
levitated
Dead,
somewhere,
right?
they're the
walked-
Walking Dead. So I had a moment of laughter because I was truthfully feeling a little down because this time of year it can be very melancholic. But that made me laugh. That got me right out of my grief. I'm like, yeah, I'm sure they're here for sure. But you do have to take those moments as well. And I'm just curious, what is the one thing that you wanted? Did you want someone to take you to the grocery store? Did you actually want that? Because I know many of my friends have had someone die, and you struggle with what's the right thing to do. So bringing the meals is one thing, but that extra thing that just might get them over that hump.
Absolutely. I'd say offering to take somebody shopping. Can you go to their house and help them clean or organize some things, write some thank you notes for them? And these are kind of short-term things that are, close to the time of losing someone for the first few months, really helping them through that. But long-term, sending cards. I mean, it's such a simple gesture. Just stick a note card in the mail. It could be a year later, it could be 2 years later, and especially be mindful of anniversaries, birthdays, anniversary of the person passing, holidays. We never get over the grief, and we would never be sad to get a card in the mail from somebody. Just somebody acknowledging the fact that we're sad and suffering is so heartwarming and so helpful to somebody that is grieving. So it's never too late to send a card. It's never inappropriate to send a text or even call and leave a voicemail message. Hey, I'm thinking of you. Just, I remember your pain and suffering. You're not forgotten. Those messages are so invaluable to people who are in grief and experiencing it.
All right, Julie, thank you so much for sharing your story with us, for adding moments of laughter to this. It is a very, very tough topic, but we really all should be talking about it because, as I said before, death is a part of life. And you know how many times I've told you, I'm so sorry you're dealing with this. I'm so sorry from one mother to another. My heart breaks for you. I don't know what to say other than that. My heart breaks for her.
And the beat goes on. And if you want to know what that means, you can look up Julie Walker and the Peyton Walker Foundation and learn more about it. Because Julie, you have not let your grief overcome you. You have moved forward in a very positive way to leave a lasting imprint of your daughter and something positive on this earth. So thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks, Julie. Boy, it's tough.
It is
tough. It is tough, but I think we did learn some things today, and I think that it is important not just to be there for the funeral, but it's the aftermath. It's that shock. It's that when everyone says, oh, just go back to work, and just everyone resumes their life, and you're stuck. And you're stuck, and sometimes you just need that support.
And I think you also need to let yourself grieve, because it's like this truck that hits you out of nowhere. You can be perfectly fine, and all of a sudden, whether it's a fragrance or a song or someone who looks like your dad, your mother, whatever, and you stop for a second, you take that double look, and then the grief comes over you. But you know what? Life is for the living, and we wish everyone who's dealing with a grief situation right now comfort, and know that there are better days ahead.
Indeed, there are. So, what'd you think? Do you have any comments? Do you have any topics you want us to hear about? You want us to chirp about? See, I'm all flustered here. Send us an email, papolitics@penwatch.org, and there are all those wonderful podcast channels that you can listen to us on. Let's see, we're on Google Play, Spotify, Stitcher, Podbean, iTunes, TuneIn. Did I get them all?
You name it. YouTube. Watch us on YouTube.
Yep,
but most of all, let us know. Like us on Facebook. We have a Facebook page. But we just, again, wish all of you well. We're so glad you're on this life journey with us.
Yes.
PA Politics.
Thanks for listening, and we will be back next week to chirp about another topic.